Ah, the theater experience, right? So as much as I have been absolutely loving going to my local theater as much as I can lately, I have had some rough experiences in these last couple of weeks. And what's funny is that, back in the day when theaters were like packed full, almost every showtime, it wasn't super uncommon for, like one or two people out of 100 or so to do something annoying, right? But the last three fucking movies I've seen had less than 10 people. When I saw Lisa Frankenstein, it was me and three old people who talked loudly the whole time. I asked them to be quiet at one point, and then that lasted about, I don't know, 30 seconds, whatever. When I saw Turning Red, my son and I walked in, and there was just one lady by herself. So we sat in the row behind her, and after 2 minutes, she kind of just moved up a row. And 20 minutes into the movie, she just got up and left, leaving a giant, one of those giant full tubs of popcorn. She just seemed annoyed that we were there. I don't know. So that wasn't that bad, just weird. But last night was the worst theater experience I've ever had. And I'm going on 4 decades of going to the movies. So I went with my son, and there were only two other groups of people. There was a younger couple, probably late teens, maybe early 20s. And then there was a fucking stampede of younger teens, 5 or 6 of them, I guess 15 to 17 years old. And honestly, I've seen toddlers with better theater etiquette, and I'm not, no joke. These fucking kids were talking at least every 10 seconds, at least, probably more than that. They were constantly shuffling around, opening backpacks, answering phones. It was insufferable. So about 15 minutes in, I turned around and told them to take their conversation outside. That worked for about 3 minutes. The couple behind me asked them twice to be quiet, and even went and got the manager, who I gotta say did a great job at handling the complaint. However, they continued to be noisy, and the rest of us just kind of gave up at that point. I don't think these kids were trying to be disrespectful. I really don't. But it ruined the movie for me, and I was so pissed off the entire time that I barely remembered anything from the movie. Oh, so I'm talking about Stop Motion, by the way. So I went back tonight to rewatch it because it's a cool movie, and I at least knew that much. I had to see it again because I knew that I liked it. I just didn't quite know how much. So Stop Motion was directed by Robert Morgan, who has been directing short films since 1994. This being his feature-length debut, 30 years later. And man, fucking good for him. Now, I knew of the segment that he did for the ABCs of Death 2, which was one of the better ones in my opinion. It's very dark and gross and awesome. It's called D for Deloused. You could watch it here on YouTube. Go check it out. And it was also done in the same stop motion style as his new film, so maybe he made them around the same time. I don't know. But I am so on board for more of this. So this film centers around Ella, played by Aisling Franciosi. Sorry, I tried. A young woman who is helping her mom, played by Stella Gaunt. I tried again. Who is a legendary stop-motion filmmaker, finish her final film. And she's got arthritis that is so bad that she can't do any more simple things like cutting her food. And she wants this final film finished at some point before she dies. So Ella, her daughter, is basically her hands, and she guides her every step of the way, literally. And this is where you see what kind of person Suzanne is, and likely the type of mother that she's been to Ella. I mean, she obviously takes her work very seriously, and I can respect that. Great artists are often that way, more times than not. But Suzanne is cold and downright abusive towards Ella, and it's very sad. I mean, you can tell that Ella loves her mom and wants her to be proud of her, and she's just not appreciated at all. And Ella is this sweet, kind of timid type girl. She's also super smart, and she wants to follow in her mom's footsteps. I mean, I grew up with parents, like that too, and I could totally relate. I just had a lot of sympathy for her. Again, Suzanne just seems to hardly appreciate Ella. I mean, I think she has a lot of pride, and she's ashamed, to need so much help, but it's no excuse. She calls Ella Puppet, like as a nickname. I'm not sure exactly why, and it should be like a cute nickname, going back to Ella's childhood, but since she literally treats her daughter as one, it's hard to view it that way. So early on, Suzanne goes into a heart attack-induced coma. I'm sorry if you view that as like a spoiler, but you can't really review this film without mentioning that part. Ella decides that she's, going to finish her mom's film, just in case she passes away. She ends up making friends with this little girl who seems to like hang around her apartment complex. You don't really know much about her or see where she comes from. And the girl seems to, have an interest in her work, and she critiques Ella's ideas, giving her some new ideas to use. And the little girl creates a villain she calls the Ash Man, who is stalking the main character through the woods in the storyline of this film. Ella begins to, kind of lose her grasp on reality and starts to see the Ash Man. Is this just a hallucination, or is it really happening? Is the story she is creating becoming reality? Well, that's a difficult question to answer, and you're just gonna have to watch the film for yourself. So, despite my theater experience, I liked this film quite a bit. I definitely highly recommend it. It had a limited theatrical run, so if you didn't see it by now and you're watching this review, you're gonna have to wait. I know it's gonna come to Shudder. I'm gonna buy it if it gets a physical release for sure, and I cannot wait to watch it again. This is a dark, slow burn, very atmospheric. It kind of has a cold, depressing feel, and I'm sort of reminded of a couple of films here. One of them being Censor from 2021, check that out if you haven't seen it, and May from 2002, which I believe is kind of becoming a cult classic, so definitely check that one out as well if you haven't. I really loved how it was kind of a brooding, almost dreamlike film. You really have no idea where it's going or when it's going to get there. For those of you that need a quick pace, that, this might be a challenge for you, but I promise that it's worth your time. There is gore, but not until like the last act, and I kind of hate how I just told you that. This film is just a goddamn gem. I went in completely blind. I'd barely even heard of it prior to, to going to the theater. And I didn't even know that I was familiar with the director's work, or at least a little bit of it, until afterwards. This is not the type of horror film that gets made all the time. This is true art. This is easily the best thing that I've seen this year, and I know that isn't saying much, but I'm confident that this will be a top 10 for me by the end of this year. I'm giving Stopmotion an 8.5 out of 10. Why I'm not just giving it a 10, I don't know. These are just numbers. I'm thinking about doing away with the number system because it's stupid. If you are a fan of artier type dark films, you will want to check this out. And if you aren't, I would still recommend that you try. The performances were great, especially Aisling Franciosi, who plays Ella, the lead, and I cannot wait to see what Robert Morgan does next, because he needs to be allowed to do more projects like this. Cheers, guys.